Today, we're continuing our sermon series, Living Inside Out. As followers of Jesus, we know that our spiritual journey is one that happens inside of us, but not only inside of us. It's something that involves our self-reflection, but pushes us out into service in the world around us. Jesus teaches that we can't love God without also loving our neighbor, and we can't really love our neighbor without having some sense of it coming from our love of God. Our self-reflection and our activities in the world cannot be separated. So over these weeks leading up to Easter, we're trying to do both. We're seeking to live from the inside out, to pay attention to our interior life of our soul and also how it leads us out to take action into the world. 2 weeks ago, we took a closer look at the story of Jesus in the wilderness and remembered that no matter what challenges that we face or how lost or alone that we might feel, we can trust that God is with us. Last week's sermon reminded us that God calls us to take action with our faith, like Abram, and to follow the Spirit, like Nicodemus. And even when it's uncomfortable, we can trust that God loves us and has a plan for our lives. We can share the good news with others and live as part of God's kingdom together. Now, it's no secret, as we had several passages about water today, that humans drink a lot of water. And recent data shows us that our thirst for bottled water is only growing stronger. A recent study conducted found that the global bottled water market was $230.4 billion in 2020, and that's just for bottled water alone. By the end of 2027, this bottled water market is expected to reach a staggering $405 billion. Can you imagine? That's an increase of 75% just in bottled water. If you add in all the other water that happens, or non-bottled drinks, we should be swimming in various liquids all the time. And yet we still find it within our capacity to consume all those drinks. We are thirsty, and it seems that we're getting thirstier. Of course, we know that drinking water isn't just good for us when we're thirsty, but also a pathway to better health, right? Water is so essential to our well-being. It is one of the most critical needs for us as human beings, right up there with air. Without water, we wouldn't be able to survive for more than a few days. Some have said that you can go 9 days without food, but only 3 days without water. So don't hesitate to take a drink the next time you feel thirsty. Of course, droughts are a reality for us as well. They can be frightening, and for good reason. In fact, in 2021, the governor of Utah was so concerned about the ongoing lack of water in the Southwest that he called for a statewide prayer meeting to ask for rain. And that's unusual in the world of politics, isn't it? And what you see here is a map of Kansas facing a severe drought. While Topeka, you can see, has been spared, most of the state is experiencing drought. 87 of the 105 counties in Kansas have been designated as disaster areas by the USDA due to a water shortage. You know that one of the critical water sources for western Kansas is the Ogallala Aquifer, a massive underground water reserve used for drinking and irrigation. But this underground aquifer has been declining at an alarming rate over the past 2 decades, dropping to just 1.7 feet in certain parts of Kansas. If this trend continues, it'll be depleted 70% over the next 50 years. This would have devastating implications for our industry in Kansas, the backbone of our state's economy and farming communities across the West. Without sufficient water, we may not be able to sustain our agricultural production, and this would have far-reaching implications for us as a state. Of course, it's not just in Kansas that this is a challenge. We find that the World Health Organization reports that over 400 million people worldwide suffer from severe water shortages, and that is only going to get worse. Experts predict that by 2050, that number will skyrocket to 4 billion people. Now, it can be easy for us to take water for granted, can it? But the reality is that we're facing a global crisis that's only getting worse. If we don't act, our future could find that scarcity is the norm instead of the exception. Now, I'm painting this picture about water for you, about the importance of water, so that we can better understand the Israelites' reaction in this week's passage from the Hebrew Bible. Without feeling the desperation of being without water, perhaps some sense of where we are today, it might be easy to dismiss the behavior of the people of Israel as just kind of whining about an inconvenience on a camping trip. But in reality, their thirst was a matter of life and death. Have you ever felt that you've heard a story before, but it doesn't quite match up what you remember? Maybe that was the story when you were listening to Exodus 17 a few moments ago. There was a similar incident that occurred. You may remember the last water and a rock event that happened in Numbers chapter 20. This event happens several times as the people of Israel journey through the wilderness. It's not hard to imagine why this issue keeps coming up for them. Imagine wandering through a desert for 40 years with a massive group of people. How in the world could you possibly carry enough water? This lack of drinkable water was a constant concern for the people of Israel. Now, the location identified in Exodus 17:1, Rephidim, is unknown, but one thing is clear: it's a really dry place. And as a result, the people panicked and demanded water from Moses. We read this in Exodus 17, verse 2. The people argued with Moses and said, "Give us water to drink." Moses said to them, "Why are you arguing with me? Why are you testing the Lord?" Now, the true extent of what it means for the people to argue with Moses is hidden a little bit in the English translation. In Hebrew, the word that's translated here almost means to file a formal complaint. The people of Israel were so upset with Moses that they were calling for his impeachment. They wanted him to be out of leadership of the people. Now, this extreme reaction may have been from their thirst or frustration with the previous water shortage, but regardless of where it came from, they gave Moses an ultimatum. You need to give us some water or you need to leave. Now, Moses was understandably angry and accused the people of challenging God by challenging his leadership. He reminded them of all the miracles that God had performed up to this point in their journey, rescuing them from slavery, and he questioned their lack of faith. But the people were not convinced. They argued that Moses had led them in the wilderness to die, and that their children and their animals were also suffering. Moses was in trouble, and he didn't know what to do. So he turned to God and asked for help. And I wonder, do you ever find yourself in trouble and not know what to do? Uncertain about what direction to take in your life? In our lives today, we can also turn to God to help for whenever we encounter challenges. This story from Exodus reinforces the truth that God provides, not because the people were particularly deserving, but simply because of God's goodness and holiness and love. This passage also reminds us of our own needs. While we might have easy access to water to quench our physical thirst, thirst isn't only limited to physical needs. Our soul can also feel thirsty, longing for something that cannot be satisfied by a glass of water. Just like our bodies need water to survive, our souls also need nourishment. We find that Jesus connects those needs in the story from John. In this story from John chapter 4, Jesus comes across a woman at a well and asks her for some water to quench his thirst. She has a bucket, which is the power to provide what Jesus needs. It is able to go down into the well and bring him back some water, which is exactly what he has asked for. But at the same time, this woman who's able to provide for Jesus' needs has needs of her own. Now, she might not have understood everything that Jesus offered, exactly what he was offering when he offered living water, but she wanted something. She wanted something more profound in her life or more meaningful. She wanted a glimmer of hope in her life, or perhaps a release from pain that she'd been carrying for a long time. And so when Jesus offers her living water, she says, "Give me some of this water." She leaned toward what Jesus offered, ready to receive it with an open heart. And in this simple encounter, we see the essence of our human experience. We all have needs and desires and hopes that we would like to have fulfilled. And we also, like that woman of the well, sometimes find it within our power to be able to provide for others. But we also, just like this woman, might not fully understand what Jesus offers us, but we might know that we want it. And this is fantastic news. When we are open to Jesus and ask, God gives us great things like hope and forgiveness, a sense of meaning, water for our souls. God can fix things that are broken in our lives, and this happens because of the Holy Spirit who helps change us and transform us. So if you ever feel like something is missing in your life, don't hesitate to ask for help. Just like Moses who asked God, just like Jesus who asked this woman for water, and just like this woman who asked Jesus for living water. You don't have to know everything or perform any complicated rituals. All you have to do is to want it, to want something more, to want something of what God might provide for us. I think sometimes we might feel empty in our souls because we don't ask, because we imagine that we can handle everything on our own, but that might not be the best way. You see, Jesus offers us a way of life, a way of living that is truly life, and all that we have to do is ask for it. Now, that might sound too easy, but maybe you want to try it and trust that God will provide for you, and even if it's not how we expect it. And to ask for God, it's just a simple prayer. It's a really simple thing. It's talking to God. You can say these 3 simple things to pray today. I'm sorry, and thank you, and please. And God will fill us with what we need. We can say sorry for the things that we've done wrong, to thank Jesus for living, dying, and being raised for us, and finally to ask God to fill you with the Holy Spirit, that our souls might receive what we need from God. And if you want to pray, you can join me by repeating these words just quietly under your breath. And it doesn't matter if this is the first time you prayed a prayer like this, or you've said it many times in your life. And we can experience life in God's kingdom by praying like this. We can find water for our souls, strength for the journey ahead. We can thank God for God's forgiveness and ask God's help to follow us all of our days. So I invite you to close your eyes if you'd like, and if you'd like to repeat just quietly under your breath, you can repeat after me. Dear God, I'm sorry for what I've done wrong. Forgive me. Thank you for dying on the cross and returning to life for me. Please fill me with your Spirit and help me follow you. I trust you with my life and pray in your holy name. Amen.